Welcome. It's episode number 14 of From Ordinary to Extraordinary. And I want to welcome you here. This is where every single week we explore the psychology, first and foremost, and then the strategies of ultimate performance, mastery, greatness. You can experience an entire life and business turnaround by understanding these psychological factors, these mindset issues, and applying those into the strategy for your life and business. So, let me just remind you before we get started, I'm going to ask you a really important question I want you to think about. You can ask questions down below. You can put your comments down below. We'll do our best. I'll do my best to answer them real time if we have time. But every single week I come back. My commitment to you is that I come back and I answer questions and I answer your comments and I expand upon things that you'd like me to expand upon after the fact if we don't have time to do it here live. Secondly, this is episode 14, so if you've missed any of the previous episodes, 1 through 13, there's some pretty good stuff, if I had to say so myself, and you can scroll through the Facebook feed, which could take an eternity, right here on my page, or more efficiently, you can go to jamesray.com/live-cast. jamesray.com/live-cast, and we list every single episode there where you can find it quickly and easily. And we've covered a lot of different topics. Today, we're going to talk about the topic of failure. And you're like, James, why would I want to talk about failure? Well, I'm going to challenge you to reframe, to rethink the topic of failure. So let me ask you a question first that I mentioned earlier, and I want you to really think about this and be honest, because there's no value in lying to yourself. Are you willing to fail miserably? Are you willing to fall flat on your face in the pursuit of your dream and your purpose? Are you willing to fail miserably, to fall flat on your face in the pursuit of your dream and purpose? You know, I was doing a coaching session a couple years ago with an investment advisor, and I asked him that question. He said, no, James, I'm not willing to fail miserably. And I said to him, if you're not willing to do that, then you will never, ever succeed. You see, one of the greatest fears that we have is the fear of failure. And if you let the fear of failure keep you stuck, then you've already failed. Does that make sense to you? Let me repeat that, because that's really important. If you let the fear of failure keep you stuck, then you've already failed. You see, the fact is that highly successful people, those who reach a level of ultimate performance, who develop a level of mastery, they don't fail less, they fail more, because they're taking massive action. Does that make sense to you? Now, let me give you a quick story, a quick example. You know, I have, quote, failed as much, if not more, as anyone that you know. I've certainly, by some accounts, failed more in my industry of personal performance than anyone else in the industry. And yet, have I really? I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sorry for those, and they hurt me deeply. And yet, how do I frame those? And I only say that because this is not about me, it's about you, because I've chosen to frame those in a certain way, and I'm going to challenge you to frame them in the same way as well if you want to reach your potential. Yes? Quick story. You know, I think you might be aware that I spent 2 years in prison. Not a fun time. And the big talk in prison is respect. You know, everybody talks about, I need respect, and that's disrespectful, and he disrespected me, and respect this and respect that. Because you see, the topics that we talk a lot about are the things that we don't feel we have. Do you follow that? And so I'm laying in my bed one day in my bunk, and my roommate my cellmate came storming into the room, and he was in a rage. And he was pacing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And he was just spitting and cussing and using all kinds of expletives. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "That blankety blank so-and-so out on the yard just disrespected me." I closed my book and I sat up and I said, "Why do you care?" I said, "Do you really care what he thinks?" And he said, "I don't give two shits about what he thinks." And I said, "Then why are you all upset about it?" He paused. And then he said to me, "Well, what about all those people out there who think you're a miserable failure, James?" And I said, "You know what? Other people's opinions of me are none of my business. But what I do know is that I'm an incredible success right now." He looked at me like I was insane. He shook his head and he left the cell. Now, how could I say that? Well, because here's my definition of success. I'm going to encourage you to write it down in your notes. I'm going to encourage you to think about it deeply. Success is not an outcome. Success is progressing in a degree that you choose to progress. You follow that? Success is the progression towards an outcome, towards a lifestyle, towards a purpose that you choose for yourself. And so if you are progressing, you're successful, regardless of what the external circumstances may appear. And so for me, I was sitting in my cell, my 10 by 12, reading for 14 hours a day. Literally, I was journaling. I was contemplating life. I was thinking about, what I had done well and what I had done not so well, and how I could become better and how I could learn and how I could become a better person and utilize those things to create a better life. And so I defined that for myself in the moment, even in the midst of literal hell, as being successful. Now, is that easy to do? No, it's not easy to do. It's very hard to do. And, no one's going to tell you, certainly I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it were easy, then everybody would be at the top of their potential. Does that mean I liked it? No, I didn't like it. But, at some point in time, you have to choose how you're going to experience it. Whatever life brings to you, you can't control circumstances. None of us can. The only thing you can control are your experience of those circumstances, how you define those circumstances, how you utilize those circumstances. Are you with me on this? And so, if you're unwilling to, quote, fail, you'll never, ever, ever reach your ultimate level of potential. Why? Because people who reach their ultimate potential don't fail less, they fail more. And what is failure? Failure is nothing more than a word we use to describe getting an outcome that we don't like. And yet the fact is sometimes we get the outcome we think we like, and then we find out we don't like it, right? Have you ever had that experience? That dream man that you want, and you get him, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this is not what I want. Or that dream woman, and you get her, and then oh my God, this is not what I want. Or that dream job. The fact is that many times the things we think we want, we don't really want them at all. Because most people are running a program. And that's a fact. Most people are like droids and automatons just marching towards what society has programmed in their formative years that they should value. So here's the thing that I want you to get today. Most of my ideas don't work. Some people would look at my life and say, it's a miserable failure. That's okay. Because you see, for me, how many ideas does it take to work to win big? If you want to do big things in the world, if you want to do great work, you have to do a lot of work. You with me on this? If you want to do great work, you have to do a lot of work. And therefore, you've got to be willing to fail miserably. Quote, fail. Get the outcomes you don't want, because isn't it a fact that you often learn the most, grow the most, develop the most, getting the things that you think you don't want? If you're wise, that's the truth. Massively successful people don't fail less, they fail more because they're taking more action. You see, it's in the quote failures that we tend to, if we're wise, ask the tough questions. Ask the tough questions of ourselves. If we're wise, we step back, we analyze, and we make adjustments. That's what I've done in my life. As I sat in a 12 by 10, I look back across my life and I thought, man, these are the things I could have done better on. These are the things that I wish I would not have done. These are the things that really need to improve. And I analyze those. And therefore I can make adjustments moving forward. If you're wise, you learn some of your greatest lessons from your greatest failures. And this is not just some airy-fairy kind of motivational, personal development talk. This is a fact. Steve Jobs said, if I give my best and I fail, at least I've given my best. Most people think that Apple is just the harbinger, the world leader in success. But if you look at Apple, they have had some miserable failures. Do you remember the Apple USB mouse? You probably don't, because it sucked. Right? They tried to change the shape of a mouse, and everybody was like, what? And no, we ain't going there. Steve, we love you, Steve, but no, that ain't happening. Do you remember maybe the Power Mac Cube? Probably not, because it sucked. Oh, Bear's shaking her head. She's an Apple fan over here. She's going, oh, yeah, I remember the Cube. And when I said it sucked, you should see her face. She's like, you can't say anything bad about Apple in front of Bear or it's fighting words. But the fact is, it sucked. It didn't work. It didn't work in the marketplace. How about Apple InfoWorld? You remember that? Probably not. You know why? It sucked. But on the flip side of the coin, do you remember the iPad and the iPhone and the iTunes and iPod? They not only set the standard for miserable failures, but they set the standard for leading the industry and changing the industry. They set the bar incredibly high. Why? Because they were willing to put it out there. Are you getting this? They were willing to put it out there. Again, Steve Jobs, hey, if I gave my best and I fail, at least I gave my best, right? He wasn't going to be stopped by anyone else's opinions. Let me tell you something that maybe you already know. Other people's opinions of you will keep you stuck. If you allow it, don't. Other people's opinions of who you used to be can keep you stuck. That's why, if you've had the experience of going home, we're rolling up on the holidays here, and if you think you're really, really awake and aware, just go home and visit your family for the holidays, right? And you'll find out how awake and aware and in control you're not, right? Because the family, no matter how much you grow and advance, no matter how successful you become in the world, the family still sees you as like 12 years old, 13 years old. You're always going to be a child to your parent. And you can't tell your parents anything because they're your parents. Even if you have trumped them many times over in your life experience, they're still not going to listen to you. And your siblings are going to see you as you used to be. And your old friends are going to see you as you used to be. And this is not a talk on community here, but that's why your community around you is vitally important, because other people's opinions of you can keep you stuck. If you stay in the small town mentality metaphorically, then you're going to be small town. And more importantly, your opinions of yourself can keep you stuck. And this is what we're talking about with failure. You know, what the amateur sees as failure, the professional sees as a temporary setback. It's just a temporary setback. You know, my temporary setback in 2009 set me back 20 years. 20 years in my business development and application and growth and all those things. But it's a temporary setback. And as you frame it that way in your mind, then you go, this is not a failure, it's a temporary setback. It's just giving me feedback and an opportunity to grow. If the opportunity in this lifetime, if the objective in this lifetime is to grow, yes, it is. That's the only objective in this lifetime, is to grow, to become the very best version of you that you can potentially become. And guess what? You don't become the very best version of you by sliding down the rainbow. You become the very best version of you in the battlefield, in the challenges, in things going sideways and stepping back and again analyzing and adjusting those. I'm going to have to do my best to use this gentleman's name, Chamath Palahiptia. Forgive me, Chamath, if you're watching, because he is an old Facebook guy and I may have butchered his name, but you know, he helped launch Facebook. And he stated in an interview, when we launched Facebook, we celebrated our failures more than we celebrated our successes. Not everything is going to work. But then again, everything works. Right? If the objective is to get bigger, better, faster, stronger, wiser, more resourceful, more resilient, then it works. Even when you don't get the outcome that you desire, it works. You see, you either come out of a tsunami, and tsunamis are all relative. You know, my tsunami is not the same as your tsunami, but your great challenges that you have in your life and business right now are as big to you as mine are to me, because it's all relative. We all are facing the most difficult things we face, and we're dealing with the biggest challenges that we can face in the moment. And so it's all relative, and you either come out of the challenge bitter and angry, right? A divorce, a business loss, a bad quarter, a bad day. It's all relative. A bad year, an illness. You either come out of that bitter and angry and saying life is not fair and why me, God, or you come out of it more awake and grateful. And the choice is yours. The choice is yours, because there's only really 2 times when you fail. You know, is there failure, James? Yes. You're telling me that it's not failure, it's just an opportunity. True, if you make it that. But there still are 2 times when you fail. In my experience. Time number 1, when you don't learn and grow. If you don't learn and grow from it, then that's not a success. That's a failure. Time number 2 is even bigger. The time you fail, and this is the big one, is when you give up on yourself and you give up on life. That's a true failure. You know, it's really hard to stop someone who doesn't ever give up. You know, you just keep coming. You just make adjustments. You just keep learning. You just keep growing. Whoops, that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Right? Apple USB mouse. Give me a break. Right? Let's learn from that. Let's analyze that. Let's adjust and let's act again. And so, I hope I'm making you think here today. I hope this is helpful. I don't know where you are in your particular life journey right now. You may be saying to me, well, James, I'm winning and winning big. Okay, congratulations. I know that feeling, and it's a good feeling. And, I'm happy for you. And what I will promise you is that seasons come and seasons go. If you're not facing a great challenge right now, you will face it because that's part of life. There's no easy street, and you don't reach a place of nirvana where everything falls into place perfectly all the time. You just don't. So you might be winning big right now. Enjoy that, learn from that, grow from that, and prepare because there will be challenges. The bigger you grow, the bigger the challenges. We'll talk about that one next week. You might be really feeling like nothing's working for you right now. You might be facing some great challenges. You might be bitter and angry. I've felt those feelings too. I'm not judging you if you feel those, but what I will tell you is the longer you take to feel sorry for yourself, the longer you're going to take to rebound. And so let me give you 3 quick tips, as I always do, just to bring this in for a landing here today. Tip number one, and this is a psychological tip: make failure your friend. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it were easy, everybody would be at the top of their game. Life is not supposed to be easy. It's meant to be meaningful. If the objective is to learn, advance, and grow, and to become a better person, then failure is your friend because it gives you the opportunity to learn, advance, and grow. You with me on this? It's not easy. Doesn't mean you have to like it. I don't like it. It takes work. But if you're going to do great work in the world, you have to be able to do a lot of work. Number 2. There's another psychological tip that comes off of a strategy. All right? Remember, we're talking about psychology and strategy. Fail fast. I want to fail fast. I want to fail forward because here's what I know. I can put something out into the world and totally screw it up and totally not get the results I want, and I can analyze, adjust, fix it, and act again before the masses can analyze to perfection and do nothing. Does that make sense to you? You see, here's my opinion. Take it or leave it. Perfection is the lowest standard on the planet. And I'm here to be controversial and provocative, if you know anything about me. But why is perfection the lowest standard on the planet? Because it's not possible. It's not achievable. The only thing we can be is perfectly imperfect. Nothing is perfect. Everything can be improved. And so, if you're sitting around, waiting around to analyze to perfection, you do nothing. What I would submit to you is adopt a mentality of I want to fail fast. Why? Because I can get it out there and go, whoops, that didn't work. Let me analyze and make an adjustment, act again. Whoops, that one wasn't right either. Let me analyze, adjust, and act again. Whoops, now I got to analyze, adjust, and act again. Act, analyze, adjust. Act is first. Remember, what a lot of people do is analyze, adjust, analyze, adjust, and then maybe someday act. No, act. Make failure your friend. Hey, we failed. That's what they said at Facebook. Let's celebrate. We learned something. We can do it better next time. We got some feedback. Number 3, let the masses do what the masses do. Let them think what they think. You have to think what you think. You can't measure your success by the measure of society's standards. You have to measure success by your standards. Because remember, true success is moving in the direction of your desired outcome. True success is moving in the direction of your dreams and goals. And only you can define those. Let the masses think what they think. Put it out there. Put it out there. You don't get a lot of likes on Facebook. So what? Put it out there. You can't measure your success by your likes or your follows on Facebook or your share, any of those things. I love it when you share these with your tribe, these live casts with your tribe. because I know that extends the reach, and I know that I feel like it's the greatest compliment you can give me, and I'm incredibly grateful for that because I know it's touched your heart. So when you share it, then I feel wonderful about that. And yet, a lot of people don't. And so if I measured by the shares or if I measured by the likes, I could get really miserable. But the fact is, you got to walk your own walk, and you've got to think your own thoughts. What others see as failure, the professional sees as a temporary setback. I think Bear has a question. I didn't see that, Bear. So let me just recap these three, and then I'll grab that question because I think one came in live, and I think we got a couple more minutes here, and I'll answer it live. Number one, make failure your friend, because you're going to learn and grow from it. And failure is just a term. It's just a term. There is no failure. There's only feedback. All right, number two, fail fast, fail forward. Act, analyze, and adjust. And number three, let the masses do what the masses do. The masses, I'll tell you, don't worry about what they think. I'll tell you what the masses think. They don't. And I'm not being disrespectful. With all due respect, they don't think. What most people think is thinking is just rerunning an old program again and again and again and again. How do you pop out of sadness that rises from failures? Danielle Nicole LaRue. Is that LaRue? Danielle Nicole LaRue?
Yeah.
Hey, Danielle. How do you pop out of sadness that what? Show me that again. That rises from failures. Okay, great question. Thank you for asking, Danielle. And thanks for being here. It's been a long time since I've seen you, and it's been too long, actually. The first thing you have to do, Danielle, is you have to fully and completely experience the sadness. I learned this sitting in solitary confinement. I spent the first month of my tour in prison in solitary confinement, what is typically called the hole. And there was nowhere to go. I had nothing to write with. I had nothing to listen to. I had nothing to read. It was just me and a concrete bed, a concrete bed, slab that they called a bed, a rusted out toilet, and the four walls and God, and my own internal dialogue. And I had to literally sit in my anger. I had to sit in my disappointment. I had to sit with all these feelings that we tend to try to avoid. We've been programmed, and there's no worse offender than traditional personal and spiritual development, who tell us we have to be positive all the time. Here's the thing. People who are positive all the time scare the shit out of me. Right? Because that's not a human being. Right? Oh, everything's great. Yeah, bullshit. So I'm not saying I'm a very positive person, and sometimes I'm just positively pissed. Right? Sometimes I'm just positively sad. Sometimes I'm depressed. I experience the full gamut of human emotions. And so first and foremost, I want you to love yourself, Danielle. I want you to accept the fact that sadness is part of the human experience. And then I would encourage you to sit with your sadness. Now, there's not many teachers out there that I know of. There may be some, but there's not many that I know of that are going to tell you to sit with your sadness. I'm going to tell you to meditate on your sadness. I'm going to tell you to meditate on whatever emotion is coming up for you, because here's what I know. If you can sit in your meditative practice, which I believe you have one, unless things have changed. I know we've talked about this before. If you can sit in your meditative practice and just say, I am sadness, and fully and completely embody the feeling of sadness and let it arise and let it be there, this scares the shit out of most people because they think it's going to be there forever. It won't. It won't. How many times have you heard me say that which is suppressed will be expressed in later days and uglier ways? When you try to stuff things and deny things and keep them at bay, and you don't allow them to have their voice, then they cause a whole host of dysfunctional problems. And so if you'll just allow sadness to fill you and feel the sadness and cry if you need to. I mean, I have. You know, I've mourned over the last 7 years more than I ever mourned my entire life. I've been more real with my emotions and more raw with my true feelings than I have, my entire life. Because I grew up in a household where I was always told you had to be positive, you had to be upbeat, you had to be smiling, everything had to be great. And I went into an industry that pretty much gives that. But I'm going to tell you that becomes dysfunctional. There's a time and a place for that, but not until you felt that sadness. And then the second thing, so let it wash over you. Give it its due. Because here's what I can promise you. It will pass. You see, every single thing in this lifetime is transitory. It's one of the great causes of human pain and suffering is that we want things to be permanent. We want to figure them out. We want to put them in a box, put them in a little safety deposit box and have it all figured out and have all the regulations and rules and predict and control what's going to happen. Well, how's that one working for you, right? And so the fact is that everything comes and goes. Pleasure comes and goes. Joy comes and goes. Happiness comes and goes. So does sadness, fear, and anger. And so the more quickly you can allow yourself to experience it, the more quickly it will go. It will go. And then you can ask it also, as you're sitting, you can ask it, what are you attempting to teach me? Because here's what I can promise you. That sadness is an attachment, if the sadness that comes from failure. I don't know what your specific situation is, Danielle, but let's just pretend for a moment it's a relationship. I'm just making this up, all right, because all of us can relate to it. A lot of us are sad when a relationship ends, and the reason we're sad is because we're programmed in a mindset that says a relationship to be successful should be forever. Well, the fact is, over 50% of relationships, by current statistics, are not forever. And what I'm going to submit to you is that sadness in that situation is from the attachment to an old paradigm. It's an attachment to a program and an expectation that was unrealistic. Because the fact is that a relationship that grows together can stay together. But when it stops growing, then it grows apart. And when it grows apart, you either decide to settle and stay in your own misery out of convenience, or you decide to leave. And so, again, it may not be a relationship issue with you, Danielle, but apply that to business. My sadness of losing my company, it took me 20 years to build, was because I was attached to achieve this pinnacle, and now here I am, and it's going to be there for me for the rest of my days. Well, that's just not true. And the sadness that came from that and the anger that came from that, was the attachment. It wasn't the circumstance or the situation. It was my psychology. It was the attachment to a paradigm that was incorrect. Because nothing is forever. Every single thing you own is going to belong to someone else someday. Even if you exit this lifetime, your business is not yours. Your home is not yours. That's the lie. I call that the all caps lie that we've been conditioned in believing. My husband, my wife, my kids, my business, my whatever, my car, my house. It's not yours. Well, James, it's paid for. I don't care. Still not yours, because every single thing you think you own is going to belong to someone else someday. You may hang on to it to the end of your days, but it's still going to someone else. So it's not yours. The only thing that is truly yours are the things that cannot be taken away. So hopefully this helps. I could go on and on, as I am well known to do, but we're pushing 40 minutes here, and I know the attention span of most people is not that lengthy. So hopefully that's been helpful. Danielle, thank you for your great question and give me an opportunity to share on that. Thank you for all of you who are here. Please share this with your friends and your tribe. If it's been helpful to you, if it's meaningful to you, it means a lot to me. And I'm so grateful that you're here, even if you don't share. I'm grateful that you're here, and we will be here again, same time next week for From Ordinary to Extraordinary. Post down below. I'll get back to them, and I'll get back with you. I love you. You're great. Until we speak again, as always. And go out there and fail. Fail this week. Fail fast. Fail forward. Mess something up and learn from it and grow. Stay awake. Love life and be epic.